Welcome to HealthTech Heroes, where we talk to innovators who are rewriting the DNA of healthcare. Today, we welcome our guest, Joshua Dunham, a seasoned leader and current director of sales and marketing of Kauhale Health. With years of experience in multi-unit operations and culinary excellence that transition seamlessly into healthcare, Joshua represents convergence of creativity, strategic thinking in health tech. In this episode, we will uncover Joshua's remarkable journey, dive into the vision behind Kauhale Health, and hear his thoughts on the future of healthcare and leadership. Welcome, Joshua, to
Thank you
HealthTech
for
Heroes.
having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a very unique podcast from my perspective, because you are the first guest who has moved on from culinary and being a chef and still being involved in that part, but also being in the health tech and healthcare. So I'm very excited for this podcast. Your career path seems like a tapestry of diverse experiences, from culinary arts to healthcare marketing. Can you share your journey with us and what inspired this transition?
Yeah, so starting back to the beginning part of my career, I would definitely say I got to work at a yacht club up on Lake Erie. Got to do a lot of fine dining experience, also run a restaurant, and I was just ready for something different. And the reason why I kind of chose memory care with dealing with people with Alzheimer's or dementia is because my grandfather had it, and it was, trying to create a quality meal and also, treat everybody like it was like they're your own grandparents, and getting that philosophy. So it was very different from restaurants to the transition to senior living because of the guidelines, the different ways of cooking, but it's also, trying to meet the residents and hear what they want on the menu, and also knowing that generation is some of the best cooks that ever walked was because they cooked everything from scratch, and that's where trying to get away from the chemicals that they put in the food and everything. But when I first got in this industry, I would put out decent meals, everything, but it was one of my favorite residents. She passed away one night, and I wasn't happy with the dinner I served there, and it kind of woke me up of, this is what I want. I want to cook as if this was their last meal every single day, and it's going into that philosophy and really getting to know your residents and really getting to know each one of them and their stories. When I was a traveling chef, I got to meet a Nobel Prize winner that was in one of our communities, and then I just was ready for something different. I kind of accomplished everything from a culinary side point in senior living. So I was ready to be home every week. I got to travel all across the country and got to see awesome buildings from San Francisco down to Florida to Arkansas and Hot Springs, and, learning each different way, and, trying to say that all they want is very home style with a trend of culinary to it. And they want real mashed potatoes. They don't want instant mashed potatoes, but it was I was ready to switch over to sales, so I could actually sit down and get to learn their whole life stories. When you're out there, you're serving them dinner, you get glimpses of what their stories are and but when you're actually being able to sit down with the family, especially with people with Alzheimer's and dementia that might not remember their last 30 years of their life, you really get to learn about who they were, from were they a skydiver, or what did they do for a living? So it's just a whole different experience, and I'm so glad that I transitioned into the role I am now, just because it's more one-on-one with our residents, more of learning more about them and helping them transition and really show them the difference between a senior living versus a nursing home 5. That's what a lot of people pictures, and it's actually creating a quality of life for them again, getting the socialization with them and getting them in activities and different things that they are actually enjoying life, where they're not just sitting home in front of a TV.
Was there a story that touched you that keeps driving you now, that, hey, you said like, hey, this is almost feels like you did not actually use the word, this is the right step I made and I'm really happy about this. But was there some story that touched you so deep in your heart, comes to your mind, that you can share with us?
Yeah, so one of our residents, he was living by himself. He was in probably the middle stage of the dementia Alzheimer's journey. And it was, he was going out to Cheesecake Factory, getting his lunch. He was so tedious and everything, but he was starting to wander. And so it was the cops picked him up, brought him to the hospital, everything. I worked with the hospital, got him here, worked with his POA. He had no family. It was a best friend. And he was like, they worked together for 35 years at the local Air Force base. It was hard for that family to say, am I making the right decision? Because it wasn't actually their loved one. It was a best friend and everything. And they're like, can he go back home? Can he do this? Am I taking away all of his freedoms and everything? And for the first 3 weeks, it took a time to get him transitioned to our community and everything. But then, sitting back and I was in there, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, and we were sitting down, and it was the POA was there and the resident in there, and he goes, I am so glad that you guys helped me get through this journey. This is somewhere I need to be. And majority of the time, his memory's not all there, but it's hearing those little small increments that says, wow, we are making a difference and we really are doing it there. Those are the stories that I enjoy, is that when they can say, I'm glad I'm not just sitting at my house, or I'm glad that even though that their memory's not at par or their logical thinking is not where it should be, but when they actually realize themselves with the memory process and saying, I am glad I made the transition. Those are the stories that makes me know that we are doing it the right way, that my grandfather would be proud of taking care of each resident like it was your own grandparents. And it's not always perfect. It's people taking care of people, but it's how do you be better than you were a day before? And that's something that I've always strived myself in, from culinary to even here, is how do I help these families be better? And it's always being transparent, honest with them from day one, and just telling them this isn't a community that's a good fit for your loved one. This is where I would recommend. And just having those honest conversations and not always looking to have your building completely full. It's actually finding the right people and doing it the right way so families trust you, and that builds everything to yourself. Is that, yes, it is a competitive market, but it's also, when you do everything the right way, it really meets, you're really doing it right by everybody.
I think that's really important when you're looking at health in general, that ultimately you want to do the right thing. I said, like, it's not the goal. In a way, it is to keep the building full because that's how you run the business, but that is not the primary driving factor. It is to do right by the patients. And I think doing that will keep the building full. And what I wanted to ask was the acronym for the POA. What is the full form for it?
Power of it.
Power of it. And one more part I noticed, you had mentioned that the nursing versus senior living. Can you differentiate those two concepts for me?
Yeah, so nursing home, they're considered skilled buildings, so they're more for rehabs, different things that they're possibly retransitioning back to their homes or to senior living. Senior living is a lay of life. It's coming down and it's like a restaurant experience in the dining rooms. It's not saying that you can't cook with salt. It's saying you gotta monitor your salt versus saying completely there that it's a 5-star plates, 4-star plates, is that you're making sure every plate is well garnished. Their activities aren't just exercises, and it's actually finding what they're from live entertainment to they're from that side versus a skilled is usually they're more exercising based all the way around, instead of, finding maybe activities that they're going out on weekly outings, from Top Golf to the Columbus Zoo to Newport Aquarium to local restaurants, versus, where usually rehabs, it's not allowed to go out unless it's, a long-term care solution. It's not a hospital feel. It's a very homesteading feel. It's not all the yellow color on every wall. You have blues and greens and reds, and it's not as institutionalized. You use linens at dinner. So it's a nice, like you would go in a restaurant. There's linens, there's wraps silverware with cloth, all the little small things that it's more of, this is your home. You can decorate, you can hang up as many pictures and things on your walls. You can have your own furniture. It's not a standardized hospital bed. I mean, if they want that, that is a possibility, but it's also, creating, it's their furniture, it's their couch, their room, versus one that's standardized that you can't really personalize. It's very home feeling versus there. But we also, have the physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy in house. But it's, just creating that home feel and creating socialization and really getting them to interact instead of, eating in their rooms, which you usually see from a skilled side versus a senior living side.
Okay. And of course, some patients go back and forth from nursing home, considering if their conditions get really worse. Sometimes they might have to go to nursing home. Is that a correct understanding, or you have everything?
It varies. I mean, so it's all kind of a case by case scenario and knowing what you can handle underneath your licensing from your state. Like with us, we can do a lot of rehabs at our building just because we do have the physical therapy and occupational therapy. But then if it is a wound or, a stage 2 wound or higher, we can handle it, but we have to get, hospice involved so they don't have to retransition to another community. Because every time that you move somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's, it does take a effect on them. But it's also knowing that you have those resources in your back pocket that you can, possibly get hospice services on, which hospice isn't always at end of life anymore. It's actually, we have residents that have been on hospice for 3 years, but it's just a steady decline with a Alzheimer's diagnosis and maybe a little bit of weight loss or different things so you're keeping it as home for them as possible when they're working through their journey. And then there's certain things that you do have to send out, like feeding tubes, ventilators, 24/7 IVs, different things that rehabs are the ones that actually have to handle that. It's above our scope and different things.
All right. And generally, I would imagine the rehab is covered by insurance or Medicare. But how's Kauhale covered generally? The senior living, is it a lot of out of pocket by the patient?
So senior living is usually all out of pocket for private pay from their care costs, but there are some that are, Medicaid available. So people that are on Medicaid or your long-term care insurance will help pay for it. There is VA benefits that help pay for it and everything, but it's really, but like we do have like a doctor that rounds every week, and we do have a pharmacy that delivers every night medications. Those all get run through their insurance, and like the physical therapy and occupational therapy, those things, but the room and kind of care costs are covered by there. But there's a lot of things out there that can help. And then there's also senior livings that are a Medicaid run down building. So you spend up to 3 years and then Medicaid will kick in there.
Okay, yeah, that's really good information. Thank you for sharing that. What does Kauhale, the name itself, mean to you, and what does Kauhale do really well? And why are you so passionate about Kauhale?
So Kauhale is a little bit different. So we are one of the only buildings in the Kauhale that is an all memory care. So I came from a traditional assisted living and memory care before I came here about 8 years ago. And it's just a whole different ball game. It's really about meeting each resident wherever they are in that dementia journey. So Kauhale means, Kal means group of in Hawaiian, and then Hale means home. So it's a group of homes, and that is what we are. It's 60 individual apartments that is really about meeting each resident where they are in that journey and creating that quality of life and making it as home as possible for them. And really knowing that this is a place that they're safe, that they don't have to worry about waking up in the middle of the night and wandering down the street. It's a safe place that they can take care of. And it's really really making a difference in each resident's life wherever they are in that journey. And it's as simple as that, is to know, hey, and just going out and getting it, because everybody likes those pick-me-ups and everything. And it really, when you get that, it really creates that they can trust you. And, we're asking families to trust us to take care of ones. And that's how, it's just, being transparent and working with them and knowing that is a huge difference. In our ownership group, they're amazing people. We have 5 different owners. One's our VP of HR, one's our chief financial officer, one's our CEO, one's our VP of operations and everything. So they're very in depth with their buildings, and we're only 7 buildings right now. And it's really, be able to know that, hey, I don't know if I can help this, and just give me a call to them, and they're like, yeah, let's make this happen. Or they're with a transparency to us and everything. They're like, hey, you can ask anything, and we're going to, try to at least, have a conversation about where some of the big corporations that have 500 or 600 buildings, it gets so lost that you can't there. But also, knowing that I have the CEO's number, that if I need anything or anything like there, I know that he has our back, and that will make that real difference for each one of our residents in any of our communities across the country.
It's very hard to have an extremely successful story, but how do you define success, and is there any success story that you have close to your heart? A success story that you're really proud of, and saying that at Kauhale, I saw this patient and who was in this condition, but eventually because of Kauhale, because of our efforts, his family came back to us with this testimonial.
I think it all goes back to, with them, just letting us, you have that budget to do kind of the cool things from Top Golf, and really going there is, it was a few years ago. We had a woman golfer that's what she did her whole life. Very little coordination, everything. But, it was just, we went down to Top Golf down in Cincinnati, and we took the residents down there, and we brought her along, and this lady who probably didn't have the most coordinations or anything gets up there and just drills these golf balls and hitting the back net. And this lady's in her 90s. Just seeing it just there, even through the dementia process, that she might forget who her own daughter is or anything, from the little small things. But then when it came back to swinging a golf club, it all hit for her. And you see this lady that was a whole difference, and knowing that Kauhale lets us have those opportunities to say, no, let's go do that. Sometimes with people with dementia and Alzheimer's, when you got that net off there, off the edge, you're sometimes thinking, okay, is there a liability? What if they fall off? What if they're, and it's just how we are able to meet each resident where they are, and doing those little small things that's like, hey, there's an awesome. And it's crazy. I was talking with a family 2 weeks ago, and he does skydiving. Even in the dementia stage, I'm thinking, how does he remember when to pull it? But that's something that's just natural to him, that he still skydives to this day. The guy he didn't move into our community, but just hearing his story about, he has 30,000 hours of skydiving, he's still jumping off planes, even though he's in that middle to early, late stage of the journey. And to me, that's I would be, very nervous and, there, but it's just something that's just so cool that, things that they know so well, that those are the things that they and it just creates that quality of life for them. That's what their happy place is. There is to skydive, or, to go golfing, and being able to give people those journeys in the dementia journey is the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Those are pretty fascinating stories, and I can just envision the surprise and the pleasure seeing that lady being so well coordinated, and in everything else she's losing that coordination. Was there a difference in her behavior after that golf tour?
No, it really just was a great day for her. It's just something that she was there, and it was like, okay, how do we do this? Is it, taking her to a driving range every week, or, those things to give her that? Or what is something that we can do in-house that it's going to create her to have this journey every day? Or, some people might be like, well, she went, you did golf yesterday, or, she did shot golf yesterday, but it's like, she forgot. Might as well let her enjoy it. And if that's what gets her happy place, then let her just have that.
That's awesome. So it may not have a long term, but that moment is super important for her.
It is.
And she got it.
It's so important to the family members. Sometimes the family forgets that they have kids, or they forget, or they think that they're waiting for their mom on the bus stop, and they're 95. Their mom has been passed and everything, and it's, just sitting there and just saying, hey, how will you eat this meal and enjoy it there, and then your mom will be here later. They're gonna forget that moment ever passed, but it's also letting them live in that moment and really creating that, because that's where their happiness is. You never want to go and say, hey, your mom has passed away, because then it's like them reliving that experience for the very. How do you work it and really meet and create that for them? And it just makes them smile and everything on there, that this is the special point. What really matters is that even though that they might not remember it the next day, it really creates an experience, instead of just staying in your room, or not being the mom that you always saw your mom to be is no longer there. So how do you recreate those moments and really create that for the family, to make those special moments, that they don't have to see their mom at the end of the stage of life. They get to see their mom dancing out of senior prom.
Thank you for sharing such stories. Of course, Kauhale Health also has challenges. It could be business challenges or other challenges. What comes to your mind as the big challenges that Kauhale Health face?
I mean, I think it's any industry, and this is, um, employee appreciation and staff retention. Those are a big thing that everybody deals with since COVID. I mean, we've dealt with it, the whole time. I mean, COVID really has changed there. And so that's another thing with Kauhale, is that they're, looking at what the competitive market is. We don't want our good caregivers chasing down the road, chasing for that extra 25 cents, 50 cents in today's world. We want to be that, we will pay you accordingly, and we'll pay you more, so we don't lose the staff. And making sure that you work with good staff and you're really keeping your staff. It's not how beautiful your building is. It's not how you could be brand new, but you're going to run with those mistakes of being a brand new building. It's really, learning the staff, and really that's the biggest thing, is staff retention. And that's a thing that we pride ourselves on for the last 3 or 4 years, is how do we keep the staff that we have? How do we keep the good nurses? How do we keep those people? How do we make sure they're not getting burnt out? Because it just creates a higher level for our residents, and especially they recognize us every single day. And that's a big thing that, I would say it has been a struggle, but it's something that we've been able to be very successful at. So we don't have to use agency nurses or agency staffing in place that, coming in, and they don't know your residents. They don't know what your standards are, or those things. And it's really, creating it so it's consistent, and knowing that there, but it's always a struggle. That's going to be a struggle in this industry I don't see that changing in the next 15, 20 years, but also keeping your staff to have the same love for the residents and not getting those burnouts.
It's the respect and love that is shown to the staff is going to be reflected to the residents as well. And I just wanted to know that you never mentioned patients, we say residents. I think it's your perspective as a company, as a person, that are actually not patients, they're residents. Is that how you operate as well?
Exactly. They're not patients. They're residents. They chose us. This is their community. I mean, even if they didn't choose this personally, their family member did. And it's creating a community, and it's from our staff. Our staff is part of our community. The community is not just the building. It's the people that's really in it to give that care. I don't like the word facility. I think that sounds institutionalized. Those things. Patient is this. It makes it feel like you're at a hospital, and it's not the case. This is their home, and it's really going into that philosophy. Kauhale, the group of homes. This is their all. We're not going to call them. We even do a awakening the subconscious of an Alzheimer's person. We used to, you could say patient, you could those, but it's not giving the dignity. Each one has their story, and it's learning each one of their stories and giving them that dignity wherever they are in that journey. And that's so important to us, is dignity regardless where they are.
And Joshua, you have been in this field for a bit. Where do you see the future going with the technology? Do you think the technology and adoption of technology is important in this area to make the residents' life that much better? Do you think technology plays a role here?
I think some technology is great. Like, I think combi ovens, things like that are state of the art, that makes it kind of foolproof for the correct way. It's already programmed in there that you can just push a button. Hey, I'm steaming broccoli. All I have to do is push the button. So it makes it kind of foolproof on cooks, because this new generation coming up is not experienced as cooks as they once were before. I mean, I started cooking when I was 4 years old, even though I'm, on the younger side of there. I mean, I grew up in Southeast Ohio. We cooked out everything from scratch and different things, and it's learning, even with my culinary degree, it was kind of just taking, those things where this new generation, they need more help on those things and finding it, making it more foolproof. Like robot servers, I don't think will ever do well in a memory care. I just don't think AI can. You need that personal touch. I mean, I think for maybe a traditional independent living or assisted living, maybe those would go great. But I think it's just seeing that there, but also knowing that I think the biggest struggle that's going to be in 20 years is actually diets. I think it's everybody's allergic to gluten there versus there. A lot of our residents, they're either allergic to peanuts or nuts, shellfish, just the basic items. They're not actually, but our residents that are younger that we're starting to see all these gluten-frees or celiac and everything that's so challenging to make sure there with, and just creating, I think that's going to be the hardest thing in the industry is the change of diets, is these allergies, milk allergies, so everything that's for usually people under 50 right now. I think in 20 years, that's going to be the hardest thing is how do you make it and how do you do it successfully for each resident?
Thank you very much for sharing that. You transitioned, it was a pretty drastic transition from being fully on culinary side to marketing side. Any advice for people who are planning on transitioning their careers? It looks like you did it within Kauhale, right? But what does it take to make the transition?
Really is just being open-minded and seeing it from a different side aspect. I know with me, when I first transitioned was I wasn't learning the family stories. And the hardest thing for me was I was so OCD on everything that I did from the culinary. I know that the kitchen needs to be clean, spotless, every night, check off lists, all there. Food they're going out. It was very kind of standardized where, with tours, it's just meeting them wherever they're at and just having those conversations that I didn't realize were there. I knew everything about the building. I mean, I've been here for so long that you learn about every part of the operations. You learn those things there, but you don't really learn the story. And that was the biggest thing is, looking at there or be ready to make a lot of phone calls that people are just going to hang up on you. I mean, that was a part that I didn't realize. I was making all these cold calls and I'm like, why? I made 55 phone calls and I had 4 people actually pick up the phone. 3 of them said that their loved one passed. I mean, that was the thing that I struggled with at the beginning was, okay, how do I make this conversation very meaningful for them? And they're like, sometimes they're looking at us just as much as we're looking at them. And I realized that it was more that side and just being open. I mean, and looking at everything from a 360 view. That was my one thing that my grandfather taught me very young in life is even if it's not your political views or you're there, look at everything from your side and put your foot in their stare and look at how they're looking at this. Is this what they're looking for? And just being real with them and not trying to sugarcoat it and not saying there or, hey, we can make sure your mom has a cappuccino every morning. That's not a realistic expectation. Is really saying we can give good care, we can do these things, these are things that we can actually handle, this is not. And just having that harder conversation, those were the things that were harder to start off with because nobody ever likes to talk about money, nobody ever likes to talk having those hard conversations of the life expectancy with somebody with dementia and Alzheimer's is 7 years, and that's from the start of the journey to the end. I mean, yes, there's some that's more, but that's the national average. And talking with families that are worried about running out of money in 12 years or 14 years and just, having that conversation is, hey, would you rather have the quality of life versus a Medicaid community versus those? Those were very hard conversations to have and really to understand myself. And, is learning different things that I never saw before of the industry from a sales perspective and really, how do you meet people in hospitals? How do you make your time with social workers very important? Not messing with their time, but actually, how do we create a partnership with you guys? And those were the hardest things for me for that transition. Was kind of more stuff outside the building.
The key thing is it's not just about the skill set, it is also the mindset, right? It's like why do you do it, and then it changes a lot of things. I think that is essentially what I got, like a lot of your mindset change, and just slowing down and listening and being in their shoes and experiencing their pain from their perspective was pretty critical for you. I think that was a good lesson. Thank you very much for that. As one last question before the very last question, what advice do you have for people who are getting into this field as a leader, as a professional who want to spend the rest of their life dedicated to this path? What is that non-negotiable mindset you advise for them to develop so that they are very successful in this area?
Truly care. It all goes down to truly caring. That's the advice that I would ever give, is if you don't have a loved one that has experienced Alzheimer's or dementia, or seeing the negative side of senior living, or it's really about keeping that passion and care and realizing that you are making a difference. Take the small victories. Take the ones that, you sit down and you hear, I am happy I was here. I am there, and knowing that you're making those differences, because if you're looking for these big aha moments, they take forever to find, because it's finding the rough through those little small areas, and finding those, that knowing that you are making a difference, but also knowing that you're going to put in a lot of hours. You're going to put in those times. It's not always on your schedule. It's not a 9-to-5 job. Sometimes you're here at 7 a.m. because they need help serving breakfast. Sometimes it's later in the evening because that's the time the family can talk to you. It's a weekend because that's the only availability that they have. They're still working children that are, they have to provide. And just staying true to who you are and really true to what you want out of your residents. And, it's just staying passionate. And that's the hardest thing for me that I've done. And sometimes, taking a week off, but then, that week off, you're, by day 4 or 5, you're like, I'm really missing these residents. Don't burn yourself out, because when you do that, then it's so hard to get yourself back. And knowing that this is where I am, I can easily put in a 60-hour work week, and that's the biggest thing I would say, is make sure you also make time for yourself, but also know that when your residents need you, they need you, and be there for them.
Thank you. And Joshua, the very last question for you is you have 90 seconds. You can take more if you want. Share anything that I might have missed through my questions, or if you want to reiterate something really important you want to talk to the audience. So the question is yours, answer is yours, time is yours.
Yeah, I just want to first thank you for your time today and everything. Thank you for reaching out and being part of your broadcast. I think it's important for everybody to know is really meeting everybody where they are and really looking at everything from a 360 view. I know I talked about that. Pre-plan. If you know that dementia runs in your family, I know my grandfather has it. I knew all of his brothers and sisters had it. So I know that it runs in my family. And doing pre-planning, looking at long-term care policies, looking at different sides of there, even in pre-plan. So if you can't make those, if you do get dementia or Alzheimer's and you're in that state that you can't make that, make it easy for your children. Make it easy for your family members to say, I know that this is. And if you want to start a career in healthcare, really just have that passion and really start there, and know that you're going to make mistakes, but learn how do you be better than you were the day before. And that's all I'm going to end it on, is just go by that philosophy, is just be better than you were a day before.
And with that, thank you very much for your time, and just a fantastic conversation, and I appreciate you taking time.